Good morning, everyone. Today, our presenting topic is should Hong Kong government legally allow euthanasia? First, we will introduce the background of euthanasia, current situation in Hong Kong, and as a supporters of legalizing euthanasia in Hong Kong, we will talk about our main arguments. On the moral ground, we will discuss the major moral debates about euthanasia and explain our rebuttals of the debates. On the practical ground, we will introduce the technical problem of practicing euthanasia in Hong Kong and share our available solutions to solve these problems. And finally, we will make a conclusion that Hong Kong government should legalize euthanasia so as to respect individuals as autonomy agencies. First of all, we will explain the definition of euthanasia. Euthanasia is usually referred to voluntary active euthanasia, which is an intentional taking of life by a third party to relieve a person's suffering in response to that person's request. This type of killing is at the voluntary request of the patients. Active voluntary euthanasia is only legalized in Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. There are other types of euthanasia: passive euthanasia, non-voluntary euthanasia, and involuntary euthanasia. Passive euthanasia means that the killing is achieved by omission of treatment, which is foregoing life-sustaining treatment. This is already legally acceptable in Hong Kong. In our presentation, we will mainly focus on talking about the active voluntary euthanasia. Now, we will talk about the current situation about euthanasia in Hong Kong. In 2003, Ban Zai asked Chief Executive to legalize euthanasia in Hong Kong. Although the opening demand was rejected by the government, his case started to raise public awareness of euthanasia and the lives of terminally ill patients in society. And in 2017, two tragedies happened. Out commits suicide after struggling his wife Feng, who suffered from dementia. Wong Kok-man, an 18-year-old man, killed his disabled wife who suffered from chronically ill, as he feared no one would take care of her if he fell sick or died. The public showed their empathy in these cases, and the discussion of whether to legalize euthanasia in Hong Kong is raised again. Ban Zai, as a supporter of legalizing euthanasia in Hong Kong, he says that time is meaningless for him. What he can do at that time is to wait for the death, and the most hopeless thing is that he even didn't have an ability to commit suicide, so as to end the torture. Wong Kok-man, the man who killed his disabled wife, also says that when a person who can neither live or die, why he cannot have a right to die with dignity. They both think that autonomy for a person should be respected. Euthanasia is the last resource for the patients when the unbearable pain cannot be alleviated. However, the Hong Kong government opposed the legalization of euthanasia in Hong Kong. According to the hospital authority, it defined euthanasia as direct intentional killing of a person as part of the medical care being offered. A request for euthanasia by the patient is often a call for help. In short, the practice is unethical and illegal. Furthermore, according to the LECO paper, it states that most patients are expected to receive suitable palliative care treatments. The government therefore look for ways to improve our palliative care service for terminally ill patients instead of considering how to implement euthanasia in Hong Kong. In short, euthanasia challenges many social values. Pain can be controlled. Medical resources should be allocated on improving palliative care service rather than initiating euthanasia in Hong Kong. After researching the current situation about euthanasia in Hong Kong, we think that the Hong Kong government should legalize euthanasia in order to respect the autonomy of the patients. However, the first initiation should be limited to terminally patients only who experience extreme physical pain and terminal disease, who fully understand the difference between euthanasia and commit suicide, and sufficient medical information are provided for patients to make rational choice. Now we will talk about our moral debates: personal sovereignty, autonomy, dignity, quality of life, Confucianism, Stiper's no argument, victorism, and our rebuttal we will talk about in this part. J.S. Mill's political idea of personal sovereignty inspires us to think if patients have the right to euthanasia. He states that over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. Every individual is an autonomous agency and has the freedom to interact consensually with others free from external interference. Suppose that he does not violate others' rights and harm others. Under the framework of liberal democracy, the legal system should respect individuals as rational and autonomous agencies and protect them from unwanted involvement in their freedom. In addition, in the legal systems, everyone should withhold consent and respect others' autonomy to practice one's rights to freedom. In this way, the principles of autonomy protect individuals to have a right to euthanasia. If a patient is suffering from an incurable illness, personal sovereignty imposes him to have a right to decide whether to go on life support. Considering that the patient does not harm the served parties and has been suffering from physical pain and psychological torture, his will should be respected and no authority such as families, doctors, and even states have a right to intervene in his decision of restoring the life support.
I will now introduce the theory of human dignity, which is frequently used in the debates of euthanasia. According to Francis Fukuyama, the definition of dignity is a uniqueness of human beings, which distinguishes humans from other species and also grants humans a higher moral status. Also, dignity is a matter of degree. It can increase or decrease and gain or lose, depends on different situation. I understand that dignity can be an abstract and double-edged concept for studying life and death, so I would like to provide some more explanations about dignity. According to George and Cathcart, there are four senses of dignity, which are dignity as attributed, as intrinsic worth, as flourishing, and as expressing autonomy. These can be the elements of dignity. And speaking of dignity, Kant is one of the most influential philosophers who explained the idea. According to Kant, dignity is an unconditional and incomparable inner worth, and autonomy or rational nature of human is the ground of human dignity. Autonomy stands for the specific ability of rational and self-conscious beings, and the ability to choose and to make decisions as well as to act upon such decisions. So we will use Kantian perspective of dignity to further the discussion of euthanasia. When a human's autonomy is threatened by the disease, being less capable of making decisions or actions to their will due to the limitation of their biological life, one loses dignity and honor. And it also means that one's biological life loses its importance and their life becomes worthless. Under this situation, euthanasia allows patients with terminal disease to end their life. This can protect them from a further undignified life. And then, according to the Kantian perspective, a human being life cannot be used merely as a means, but our life must be used as an end in oneself simultaneously. Next slide, please. Okay, and now I will talk about the debates of euthanasia from the dignity's points of view. It is argued that euthanasia is also a kind of intentional killing which diminishes the opportunity for the patients to flourish. Without flourishing, human dignity would be undermined. However, the reasons why patients cannot flourish their life is actually is that they suffered from great pain and losing their ability to act according to their thoughts. So euthanasia, in fact, allows them to make decisions about their own death, which shows the respect to their autonomy. And a dignified death is actually another way to flourish. Secondly, euthanasia is criticized that it is merely used to avoid pain of the patients, and is reflected that to the patients, life becomes a mere means to enjoy benefits, and it violates the principles of human dignity. However, we do not agree that euthanasia implies that life is only a tool to enjoy benefits, because it actually promotes the patient's own good and the prime value that they uphold. According to the will and autonomy of the patients, it relieves patients from pain and tortures, and it helps regain their dignity. Thirdly, it is argued that euthanasia reinforces the assumption that it is undignified to be severely disabled. It is a fact that some of the patients or people with severe disability suffer loss of dignity because of the torturing disease. So legalizing euthanasia helps that particular group of people, because it allows them to take back their control of life, showing the respect to their autonomy in life decision, so they can be dignified again.
From the perspective of quality of life, it holds that the value of life is instrumental in providing a vehicle for a life or sufficient worth or quality. It is therefore concerned not only assessing the worthiness of the treatment, but also the worthiness of the patient's life. Therefore, maintaining life should not be the first consideration. This valuation of human life grants the principle that because certain lives are not worth living, it's right intentionally to end them. Therefore, it justifies euthanasia. In order to justify worthiness, we can see the perception of enjoyment. Thomas Haku um, introduced way to feel good in his book The Best Thing of Life. He encouraged readers to pursue a pleasure that in a doing of yours. Individuals should try their best to find specific activities that they love and then make themselves be absorbed in it. The specific activity can be playing golf, playing guitars, or writing. If one totally immerses himself in the activity that he loves, he will get the highest enjoyment. And therefore, happiness is always a byproduct. It means that you will not get happiness if you consciously seek it. The only way to get enjoyment is to build up your interest and physically engage in that activity. Under this line of thinking, patients who are suffering from incurable deadly diseases lose their physical ability to pursue the highest form of happiness. Unfortunately, they also lose their chance to try the flow of experience in life. Therefore, from the perspective of Confucianism, its perception towards life is quite similar to quality of life. It thinks that biological life is not the highest values. Only living has no intrinsic moral value. Living as a virtuous people does. Morality is emphasis, and if you have failed to follow Ren and Yi, it's even worse than death. Confucianism also perceives enduring pain as a process could make you a better man. Therefore, there are theses and antitheses in Confucianism perspective towards death. The first thesis is that one should give up one's life if necessary for the sake of upholding the moral values of Ren and Yi. For example, Wen Tianxiang, that he thinks that everyone has to die, no avoiding or delaying death, but Ren and Yi are more desirable. Dying is a part of life. How one dies is a part of how one lives. We should die in such a way that we can render one's life meaningful or honorable. And the second thesis is that one should actively terminate one's life for the sake of avoiding humiliation or upholding one's dignity. It means that it's the death of dignity. And also that there is also antithesis that one should broaden the scope of one's commitment. Instead of dying for a limited cause, one should live and die for an object of higher order. And the second antithesis is that when there is no threat to one's life and when the calling in life is clear, one should live on to fulfill one's vocation in spite of personal tragedy or and undignified treatment. For example, Sima Qian decided to bear this unbearable indignity in order to complete his half-finished masterpiece. Therefore, these two individuals state that we should continue one project in life so as to make the most out of his life. However, could really a patient of terminal illness with serious pain find what he should or he could continue in his life? It may not be meaningful for most of the people when the suffering is too unbearable. Therefore, when we put Confucianism in a perspective into euthanasia, that it partly agree euthanasia. For the good death that is agreeable with thesis 1 and 2 because it means death with dignity. However, Confucianism have a different perception towards dignity. For dignity, Confucianism also related it with humiliation, like going to court or being caught by the enemy. However, suffering, pain, or disease is a universal human phenomenon. It may not match with the Confucian view of dignity. Therefore, Confucian may reject euthanasia and thinks people should continue the life project. But in the past, even suffering, disease, or pain, it may only last for a short time. However, with the advancement of technology, people could live longer even with serious illness. But this kind of technology brings endless pain to the patients, which is not confronted in the past. It makes people lose the dignity of body, such as relying on machine to maintain life. Therefore, this kind of humiliation that the current patients face may be consistent with the perception of Confucianism, and Confucianism do believe that they deserve a good death through euthanasia. Therefore, we would like to introduce the slippery slope argument. It means that if a proposal is made to accept A, it will likely lead to B, which is perceived as immoral. Why this happens is because that there's no precise guideline could be drafted for euthanasia, and people may feel huge pressure from the public, that feeling that they're being the burden of others. Therefore, more people choose to undergo euthanasia. However, this kind of argument agree that euthanasia is morally permissible, but some are worried about the negative impacts brought by the legalization of euthanasia. For example, for no precise guideline could be drafted, it's only concerned about the technical problem that whether we can draft the guideline, that this kind of technical problem that we will solve it in our following presentation. And for the pressure from the public, that there's two problems. That one is it really true that the pressure of public will lead to more people choose to undergo euthanasia? For example, a survey conducted in 1998 finds that people who are more vulnerable hold a more negative view towards euthanasia. Moreover, in order to alleviate the possibility of this kind of pressure affecting the patients, that social support is very important for Hong Kong government to improve more on it. If Hong Kong need to legalize euthanasia, we also need to improve the treatment or support towards these patients. For another slippery slope argument, that there are voluntary active euthanasia. The first one is acceptance of voluntary active euthanasia rests on the judgment that some patients will be better off death. It means that doctors is the one who judge its benefit or not. It means that if we accept voluntary active euthanasia, we have to also accept non-voluntary active euthanasia, because even an incompetent patients also suffer unbearable pain, that doctors can judge whether it's beneficial for them to die. However, that there's a problem of the role of doctors, that we think that the roles of doctors should be ensure the patient's request is autonomous and offers sufficient medical information for the patient to choose. We do not uphold that doctor's autonomy, which is doctors could reject patient's will only because he don't want to do it. It's not permissible in our point of view. Therefore, the most important is how we respect the patient's autonomy and will under euthanasia.
So I will talk about another theory that is used against euthanasia. The theory of vitalism explains that there is a vital force operating in humans' body and that cannot be reduced. When it is applied to philosophical debates about life, it conveys that human life is an absolute moral right, and as humans, we should preserve our life at all costs. So shortening life and failing to strive our life are recognized as a mistake. Next slide, please. According to the principle of vitalism, euthanasia is a kind of intended termination of life, which is absolutely not allowed, because no matter the degree of pain or the cost of living with the disease is, doctor and patient must preserve life. However, we argue that to patients who suffer from terminal disease and extreme pain, the insistence of preserving a torturing life does not give any reasonable benefits of hope, but it puts more burden on the patients when you require them to lead an undignified life. Also, it violates the autonomy of the patients to make their life decision.
We would like to use the case of Belgium as an example. Belgium is one of the countries which allows the voluntary and active euthanasia among the world. There are several aspects. First of all, the request of the patient should be voluntary and it should be well considered. The patient should keep request to have euthanasia and it is regarded as the autonomy to receive euthanasia. Also, the condition of the patient, he or she should have a constant, unbearable physical or mental suffering that cannot be alleviated, or he or she should have a serious and incurable disaster caused by illness or accident. There should be approval from the physician that at least 2 independent physicians should consult with the patients before, and the examination of medical record is needed. It is considered as an active euthanasia since sufficient medical information is provided for the patient to make their rational choice, and it is completely different to that of committing suicide. When we look at the procedure in Belgium, first of all, there is a request of euthanasia. That the patient has a constant, unbearable physical or mental suffering that cannot be alleviated. For a patient that is expected to have short life expectancy, they need to have a consultation with a physician. Then they need to have another consultation with physician to talk about the serious and incurable character of the disorder they have. And they should have an examination of the medical record of the patients. For the patient that are not supposed to die in the near future, they need to consult with another physician, which could also be a specialist. That they need to review their medical record in order to confirm their disaster is unbearable and is a physical or mental suffering. Patients are given a 1-month request and they can withdraw from the euthanasia in any time. The whole system is guaranteed by 3 parts. First of all, the physician should be independent and they should have no contact with the patients before. There is a committee called FCECE that they are responsible to review the reports handed in by physician in order to ensure there is no illegal euthanasia. Moreover, the consent of patients is needed. That the patient needs to have their signed and a written agreement. We would like to move on to the technical debate whether it is practical for Hong Kong to legalize euthanasia or not. First of all, there is a moral hazard of the physician and the doctor. Because the results of euthanasia that it is successful or not highly depends on the judgment of physician and doctor, and some physician and doctor could relatively support the idea of euthanasia. For example, in Belgium, half of the euthanasia cases happened in the same clinic. That's the physician in that clinic are relatively supportive towards influenza. Moreover, there is a report showing that doctor could also intend to shorten patients' life or shorten patients' life to save resources and think it is good to the patients. We will also like to argue that the absence of physical and incurable disaster, according to the definition of health by the World Health Organization. Yes, thank you. The health include the physical, mental, and social well-being. However, especially for the mental illness, it could be subjective, especially when the patients claim that they have a tiredness of life. There is no possible way or accurate way to measure the tiredness of life, and in such case, could we include it to be approved to have influenza? Moreover, like an old man that when he or she get old, they could have a multiple disaster. They could all be curable, but when they grouped together, it could bring harm, the limitless painfulness to the patients. In such case, could we consider it as the result of influenza? Towards the autonomy of the patient without conscience. That in Belgium, the relatives could determine if the patient who lose conscience to have influenza. Moreover, there is an argument towards the age range of the patients. Could only adults or including children can receive influenza? For example, in Finland, relatives could represent the patient with dementia to have influenza, and children are below 12. If they have cancer, their guardian could allow them to have influenza. However, it leads to the argument that if the autonomy of an individual is harmed, towards the written agreement of an patient, that although patients are required to sign a written agreement before receiving influenza, however, how could we measure the willingness of the patients or the validity of the written agreement? Especially, there could be external pressure from family and friends or even doctors. Also, it could be a social norm that if you think that you are incurable, then you should receive influenza. It's become a norm instead of an exception in the society. However, we would like to have the following rebuttal. First of all, for the moral hazard, we could consider the case in Belgium that we should form a commission to review the case of influenza with people from different areas. For example, the committee should include lawyer, doctor, physician in order to make a variable judgment. Also, we believe in the professional ethics of the specialists and doctors, that we assume that to be rational and professional. Knowledge is needed, so the government should provide training in order to let them to obtain qualification and to handle the case of influenza. Exchange program is also needed for them to go to the country which adopt influenza in order to equip themselves to make a variable judgment towards influenza. About the absence of physical and incurable disaster, according to the definition of health, since mental health is included in part of our health, and when we look at the example in Hong Kong, that although the mental illnesses of Hong Kong people are common, however, we do not put a focus on it, and we have a limited resources allocated to respond to these aspects. When we look at the pain brought by multiple disaster, it could also be endless. When we consider the mental suffering or the pain suffering in multiple disaster, though it could be relatively subjective to indicate whether the illness is incurable. According to the moral debate we have just now, that we believe the autonomy of an individual and the professional ethics are held. It is the choice for the patient to receive their influenza, and they clearly know what they are doing about. So it is justifiable for people to have mental illnesses or multiple disasters to receive influenza. Regarding to the autonomy of individual without conscience, we would like to argue that since the slippery slope theory we discussed just now argue that passive influenza could be good to patients in such a way. However, in general, when we overview our moral debate, we believe the autonomy of an individual, that is the essential element in influenza. So we would like to argue that the relative of the competent person do not have the legal rights to allow patients without conscience to have influenza. It is the autonomy of an individual to receive influenza. To the last point of the written agreement, once again, we believe the autonomy of an individual, despite there are possible impacts brought by the others, for example, the family or the daughter, we believe that the written agreement is valid, and the patient should consult with at least an independent physician twice in order to confirm they have a clear and confirmed request of influenza. Patients are also given a month of request that they could withdraw and regress in any time, but it is given that they have their conscience and they know what they are doing about. So we would like to argue that Hong Kong should legalize influenza since we believe in the autonomy of the individual, and we have argued the practical debate and we have our rebuttal on it. This is the end of our presentation, and thank you.